lot of people figured out online church. I think a lot of people went away from it after the pandemic ended.
Really?
Right. Yeah, I think for sure people don't really care about it as much as they did during it, right? When that was the only option they had.
Welcome to the Digital Ministry Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Runyon. Digital Ministry Podcast is brought to you by Media Impact International, where we get to talk to leaders in digital ministry, forward-thinking people like my good friend, Katie Allred, who's joining us today. Welcome, Katie.
Thanks, Nick.
From the lovely city of Nashville, Tennessee, with lots of good food. Lots of good food.
Lots of biscuits and fried chicken.
Love it. It's the best.
Yeah,
it's the best. So Katie is, Katie, I've known you for years. The work that you've done with churchcommunications.com and the Facebook group, I think the Facebook group is where we first got connected. It's been amazing to watch this community grow over the last several years. Why don't you just give our listeners a little background on like how that got started, how you founded it, and what is it today?
I was such a young person when I founded it. You know, it's so funny because I didn't expect it to like take off or do anything. And it really did. I started it in 2015 when I was working at a church because I wanted to find other people who were doing similar things. I thought, there's going to be other people who hate making Facebook ads or don't know how to do it. Like, surely I can find them and we can discuss how to use this business manager tool or something, you know?
Was Business Manager even out then?
I think so. I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe.
Yeah.
Ad Manager? Was it Ad Manager or something back then?
I don't know.
Probably.
2015. That's a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, yeah. So, I mean, bulletins, people were making bulletins. I wasn't making bulletins. Thankfully, that wasn't my job. But I knew like there were people out there that were doing that.
Were?
Were. I don't know. Many people actually still are making bulletins these days. I think a lot of people got rid of them during the pandemic and never started again.
All right. And there's a whole section of your community that was just rejoicing and partying. Oh,
yeah. I mean, now the people who are still making a bulletin right now are up in arms. They're like, what? You mean some people don't make a bulletin still? I'm mad.
So this is solidly like church people. This is digital, or graphic designers rather, some digital marketers, people responsible for making the church bulletin on a Sunday.
Yeah, comms directors.
There you go.
Yeah, a lot of creative arts pastors, worship pastors, senior pastors who literally do all the jobs, administrative assistants.
Yeah.
There's a boatload of a lot of people who do many of these things underneath their job description and other responsibilities.
The other thing I always tell people about you is you did a little, actually, we'll go there now. You did a little stint at Facebook as well.
I did, yeah, for a hot second. I was on the faith partnerships team, and then I did community partnerships for North America. Yeah,
and so that like was very much in line with what you've done with the church communications platform.
Yeah, just supporting people who are using the platform and helping them figure out how to use it better, essentially. And, you know, I think I've always enjoyed really helping people with their social media strategy in general and thinking of new ways to reach people using the internet. So I've been doing that for a long time.
Yeah. And you're one of the best at it. And that's what we talk about here on this podcast. So I think you've got a lot of great insight and we'll try to get into it. But tell me just back to the community, like how big is this community of church communicators today? And is it only US or is it international as well?
It's international. And I wouldn't say it's super international. It's mostly US based, but we've definitely got people from all over the world, especially Australia. We have a lot of Australians in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, your second question was how did it get started? Or no, wait, what was the other question?
Just, you know, like a little bit about the community today. So,
okay.
How large is it?
Yeah, it's almost 34,000
That's
ish.
incredible.
Yeah, which is just silly. It's insane to me. I think there's 300,000 churches in North America, something like that. So if that's the case, then it's like 10% of it. Maybe, if there's only one person from every church represented, which is not the case. A lot of people add their entire staff once they find the group.
Oh,
So,
really?
oh yeah, 100%. We have several churches that have everyone in their staff. We have several people who are hoping their church staff never finds the group because that's where they're getting all their good ideas from.
Right.
And that's fine. I'm here for them. And if you want to come to our group and steal good ideas, please do.
So just for those that are the uninitiated, and when we say the group, this is a Facebook group. So you can join this Facebook group on Facebook.
Right. It's totally free. You can go to Church Communications. You can go to Facebook.com, of course, and then find Church Communications and find the group that way. Or you can obviously go to churchcommunications.com and join the group from there as well.
Yeah. So just incredible. One of the things I really wanted to ask you about was watching the conversations with 34,000 church communicators around the world. I mean, you see the good and the bad and the ugly, the challenges that you see all kinds of stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%. There is a lot going on in that world, especially after the pandemic. The before the pandemic and the after the pandemic are different worlds. I mean, it's very much like before 9/11 and after 9/11, like these very traumatic experiences that like changed the way we do things, right?
Yeah.
I think the way we do church and the way that we communicate are different. I mean, even now I'm talking to you from my home office. I work from home. Like that wasn't something I did before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I've changed careers quite a bit, but I was, teaching before the pandemic in a classroom in person. And now I still teach like 4 classes for different universities, but it's all online. So it's kind of funny to think like, oh yeah, I used to like go to an office and like talk to people and like go to their desk and steal their candy,
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely a different world for sure.
You need a candy? I'm gonna send you a candy bowl. Set it on your desk.
Okay, excellent. I mean, I do have some, but it's pretty crappy. So yeah, you need to step it up some.
You know what? I am gonna send you some candy. We've got a great I call it caramels. Is it caramels or caramels?
I say caramel.
Caramel?
I think I don't know. I'm from Alabama. Caramel.
I grew up like right on the river, southern Indiana. So the split between the north and the south, I don't know how to say anything. Is what I learned.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah. So give us a little insight into, before the pandemic and after the pandemic in the world of church communications. I mean, I'm thinking online church, like tons of people launched online services for the first time. And I'm in that group too. I remember like people were losing their minds about that.
They were like, I have no idea where to get started. Right?
Yeah. Are we still there or did everybody kind of figure it out?
I think a lot of people figured out online church. I think a lot of people went away from it after the pandemic ended.
Really?
Right. Yeah, I think for sure people don't really care about it as much as they did during it, right? Mm-hmm. When that was the only option they had. Now, I think a lot of people have turned off their live streams, or if they are doing it, it's kind of the last thing on their mind. It's not the first thing, which I don't know is the right approach. I do think, a lot of things are going digital, and at the same time, I think you can have such wider reach, like international reach, if you continue to put some effort, and not even, you don't have to put massive effort, but some effort into like your digital church service in some kind of way. But, I think the challenges too of the current like landscape, it's definitely a lot more complex. Like it's more complex now than it was a decade ago, right? Because there's so many more platforms and content, not even just like, don't even like talk about just the pandemic, but like even today, like there are so many more ways to do this than there were before. Right.
That can create a lot of stress and headaches for people too, because you got to manage all those platforms.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think I teach a lot of people not to do all of them, to pick one, and you can go as deep as you want. And then if you feel like you could handle another one, then sure. But even like with like Facebook and Instagram, they're the same platform, right? I mean, technically
Sure.
they're Meta, but I think I would choose one or the other.
Why?
Because they're different platforms. I think that, Instagram to me is for creators.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's kind of always been that way. It's very personal. It's very, I think, face centric, which is funny because I think Facebook is too. But I think Facebook is more for community, like for creating connections. Instagram to me feels like one to many, and Facebook feels like many to many. And I think churches miss an opportunity if they're not using it as a many to many connection, if they're just using it as a broadcast channel. I mean, it can be that, and that's fine. But it can also be a place to create and build community and relationships. Whereas Instagram, to me, it's very creator-esque. It's not really built for community so much. I mean, there are people who build communities on it, but it really was built to feature one person.
It's like showcase.
Or, to feature this like talking head or, this reel or whatever.
Right.
And put that message out into the world.
So for people that are listening and they just heard you say Facebook is for creating community, what if my only experience is, I post some stuff and my family from around, the country comments on it from time to time? Like, how do you go from that to the type of community that you're talking about? I mean, expand on that a bit.
Well, the thing is that even if you're just using Facebook and posting your pictures for your family to see it across the country, that's still a community.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
but that's
kind of ways.
That's kind of one to many though, right? Me posting something. So
yeah, but you're probably also liking and commenting on your family's pictures and post as well, right?
Okay. Yeah.
It's probably not very one-sided. I mean, most of the time, I would say. But like, if you're
it's pretty one-sided. I'm a taker on Facebook.
Are you a taker when it comes to social media?
I'm not a giver.
Well, that's why we're talking. I'm now your therapist for social media.
I love it.
But we will get you to a better place.
But with, church communications in your group, I mean, that's a true many to many thing. Like,
yeah, it really is. And it is hard to create that in a church context, to be fair. The Facebook group that I created, there was a real need. And so people sought it out because they needed to figure out something. They had a problem of some sort and they needed to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, could you create a group around fixed felt needs for your community? Yes. It depends. I think like you could create one around childcare, and that could be interesting. Like if your church offers childcare, like being the solution to that, or even around things to do with kids in your area. Like that's an interesting, like a mom's group or something for your area. Great dad's group. If you want to get like more broad, or, a hiking group for your area, just using those things to build community specifically to reach people in your community. If you wanted to go like bigger than that, I mean, obviously there's lots of other topics, but I think just, Jesus wanted us to start relationships with people outside of the church. And so I think, how do we do that? We just act normal and start doing things that we love, right? I think I'm a big fan of improv, and I'm in some like comedy groups and whatnot. And I mean, that's a great way for me to like create relationships with people who are different from me. But at the same time, like I enjoy learning about their culture and like and creating a relationship with them.
I didn't know you did improv.
I do.
I love that.
Yeah, I don't talk about it a lot, really.
Well, let's talk about it a little bit. How long have you been doing that?
Nobody needs to know about my improv.
We're gonna fill up your next show. It's gonna be packed.
No one needs to know. I'm actually just in classes. I haven't really been like in a show. I've only been in one show, and it was a show where they asked me to come and be the person who told stories from their life, and then they acted out those stories from what they could remember.
Okay.
Which was hilarious,
Yeah.
but just that premise is funny. But I decided to bring entries from my live journal when I was like 12 and read those for them to act out. So it was very entertaining. I don't know if you've ever seen or heard the podcast Mortified.
No, I'll check it out though.
It's very funny. I think I found it originally. It was on Netflix. Like you could watch it on Netflix, and then I think it's like an NPR thing or Radiotopia or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's people reading their diary entries from high school and whatnot. And I was like, I would love to do that. And then I got this opportunity to tell stories and have them acted out. And I was like, I think this will take away the nerves of me just going up there and talking because I'll just be reading. And it went off very well. People thought it was hilarious. And I invited no one that knew me because I was just like, I don't want anyone to know that I'm like talking about them or whatever. So, but it was fun. And I enjoy doing improv. I did a class in stand up and I've done some stand up and I'm really bad at it. And so I don't like it as much, because you have to like remember how to land your line, you know?
Yeah.
You really have to memorize quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I'm good with that, but I really enjoy being funny on the fly more than I do.
I think you are hilarious, by the way. But
well, thank you.
But I've also heard people say like comedians aren't just funny people. Like that's not, especially with stand-up, it's not enough to just be funny. You have to, it's a craft. You have to you have to build it.
Yeah, I mean that's why I was in a class, and there are classes for it. Yeah, I mean there's classes for improv. Like I said, I'm in class. I'm supposed to be going into level 3. I didn't do it this semester. I'll probably do it maybe in the summer. But I've done a few courses now, and it's. Yeah, you have to build scenes and learn how to work well with a group and, how do you build a playground that other people can learn from. What I really loved from improv and something I think anyone who's a church leader can take away from improv is that I learned how to say yes and that I should live in the present because the future doesn't exist yet. So we can't invent the future. We can hope and plan, but at the same time, like we have what is given to us right now in the present. Let's just deal with what we have right here in the present. And it really helped me. Actually, how I got into improv, Nick, not that you asked, but how I got into it was I did an improv for anxiety course.
Okay.
With a therapist and a comedian.
Okay. And it's a group, or was it just the 3 of you?
No, it was with a group.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a group of people, but a group of anxious people meet to do improv. Isn't that funny? Like, it's hilarious.
This is a good sketch, actually.
The premise of it is hilarious. But then, actually doing it was really fun because, like, after you do a game, you talk about your feelings and why you felt that way, and then, like the things that you can learn from improv that you can like actually put into your life and those kind of things. Amy Poehler does a great job talking about this actually in Masterclass. If you have access to Masterclass, about how improv like changed her life. And I think there's a lot that people can learn from it, but it really did help me also at public speaking. It helped me gain more confidence just in negotiating and all sorts of things. Cause like, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And if you make a mistake, it's funny. Like,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not fatal.
Yeah.
I think saying yes and living in the present are I think that's great advice for so many scenarios. I mean, parenting comes to mind. It's any conversation or relationship that you have, work, conflict,
Yeah.
Have you read Born Standing Up by Steve Martin?
No.
That's a great book.
Should I read that?
Yeah. And he talks a lot about, I guess my takeaways from it were there's no accidental laughs. Like he does a lot of exploration, and actually with like digital marketing. And maybe this is why it resonated with me so much. I think whether you're doing like social media management, digital marketing, ministry elements to that. I mean, I built a business development team, at a software company that I led a couple of years ago. And I would tell them all the time, it's like, it's not an accident when a comedian gets a laugh. Like it was built that way. And it was building to that moment where you've got tension and then you allow it to release. And it's just like, it's just like a great salesperson, where you're setting somebody up for, the ask, but making them feel good about it. Or I think that the experimentation was what really kind of resonated with me. It's like, you got to try a lot of different stuff and then just take really good notes about what works and what doesn't. And then let's go back and apply those things and continue to test.
Right.
But nothing's constant,
Yeah.
Actually, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking about like, even if you're running ad campaigns or you're running, some kind of social media.
Everything is different. It doesn't work the same twice, does it?
No, but even if you find something that works really well, it doesn't work forever. Like you exhaust it really pretty quickly, just like a joke gets old. Like the best joke, eventually everybody's heard it. And it's like, that was good the first 5 times I heard it.
Right. Right.
So you just got to keep learning, keep diving in.
Yeah.
I love that. I really would love to see a show if I'm ever back in the area.
Okay. I'll let you know. You should do improv yourself. You should go take an improv class. I bet there's one near you and it's so much fun. So I recommend it to everyone.
I bet it would be fun. I've always wanted to do stand up.
Oh, you should do a class then.
I think it's like the immediate feedback and the terror of.
Oh, it's a lot of terror. That's the thing. Like improv for me was fun, and it's fun because it's silly and you're acting, but like, stand up, you're just yourself up there. And it is terrifying. You got to really get to the point quickly. You can't just like tell a story and let it meander like we're doing now.
No, I think it's really relative, actually. I mean, and I read that Steve Martin book years ago, actually about the time that we started doing some work together. And it put me down this like long path of studying, these comics, which has been really fun for me. But to bring it back around, like improv, you're working with other people that are in your troupe or on your team, right?
Right.
And it's a lot. There's some similarities to user-generated content. What you've built with the church communications group, and I've, like I said, I'm a member of that group. I've watched it for years. A lot of the content and the post and the interaction is coming out of the community now. So like, how much are you driving that conversation versus kind of reacting to it or managing it? And, so for anybody that's leading a group out there, what?
Yeah, well, at the beginning, it was basically just me going
every day.
Yeah, every day. Being like, what are y'all doing today? What are you working on right now? I don't know. I'm doing this thing. It's weird. But and that's the truth about any community is that it takes a lot from the person who's leading it at the beginning. But that's the truth about any community. You plan a church, and it's going to take a lot from the person planning a church. Yeah. It's not any different online. I think people think, it's going to be different online. It's going to be easier somehow.
I'll just go viral and then it'll take off.
Yeah. I'll just start it and it'll take. Yeah, but that's the thing. The people think, if we build it, they will come. And that's just not the case. Like, you can build it and nobody's going to show up, right? So, today, my it's a lot of user generated content. I do a lot more moderating today than I do creating. I'm trying to reverse that. I'm trying to go back. I think I'm like 80-20, 80% like moderation, 20% creating. I'm trying to flip that. Because at the very beginning, it was very much 80% I was creating, 20% moderating. And then once it grew past a certain threshold, I would say probably about 5,000-ish members. That's when it reached a certain number of people that it just didn't need me to create something every day. People were creating and talking to each other. And that's the case at a church too. Like once you reach a certain number, right, of people at a church, you get volunteers, you get people who are coordinating volunteers, you get a worship band. You're not, the senior pastor also leading worship, also coordinating the children's church and those kind of things, right? Like eventually it grows to be a body of people, but it takes some time. And that's the thing about online church or creating an online community. It's going to be the exact same thing. You're going to have to put just as much effort. You're going to have to contact your volunteers and ask them to step it up online just as much as you are in person, and remind them why they're doing what they're doing. I have moderators in church communications, and I love them. A lot of them have been with me since the beginning, but, many times I'll realize they haven't moderated anything in the last 90 days. I've done all of it. And then I'm like, okay, let me remind you that I would love for you to moderate. If you could, that would be helpful. But, it's just like volunteer coordination, right? Like, cause then you'll run yourself ragged and risk some burnout. So it's an interesting place to be. That's for sure.
I think it's incredible, what you've built and the lessons you've learned as you've gone. I'm wondering about, starting. So you're talking about the startup phase, and earlier you threw out like start groups that you're interested in. I think that's a really interesting strategy for churches. Like we are meant to like form communities, be part of the community, share love and, help and support whatever the community, needs around my, around my church in my city or town. Like, how do I engage there? A couple of the ideas I thought I heard you say were like a mom's group or, I don't know, like
hiking,
fishing, dog lovers, if somebody wants to start one of those, like, so it's hard to get that momentum going, but what are some of the key tips or things that people need to think about?
Yeah, I'm going to harp on this until I die. I've been talking about this exact same thing for like 10 years now, and the platform might change. Like it may not be Facebook groups forever, but you can do this in a lot of different ways. And there are already so many good groups. So like, hear me say that you can just join a local group if it's already going and get plugged in and probably help out the person who is running that and create a relationship there. And that's a great way to do ministry too.
Oh, that's a great call out. Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily go and create a whole new one by yourself, but cause like for me, I know like there's a group, I technically live in Nolensville, which is a suburb of Nashville. And there's a Nolensville 411 group with about 15,000 members in it, which is basically the entire town. And I see people in there. I mean, they talk every day, like so much, like there's so much conversation happening in this group every day. And this is a great way to get involved in your community and like to just be a normal person who helps answer questions, like who gives recommendations when people ask where's the best Mexican restaurant, or I need a handyman, or I need someone to help me move this thing. Okay, great. Be that person who moves that thing. Like if you're capable, right? And so, or, say there's so many things that you can be the answer for on the internet. Don't feel like you have to go and create it necessarily. That's basically what I'm trying to say. But out of those groups, so you can create like there can be subgroups created, or you can create groups completely new or whatever. Like for example, like in Nolensville, there's a running club. And this was a spinoff of the Nolensville 411 group of a bunch of people who wanted to run together. And so it's a bunch of people who run together like every Monday, and there's like 300 people in it.
Wow.
And yeah, this has become a viable community all on its own, right? Like it's just a bunch of people who meet and run every once in a while together. And so you can do the same thing. I'm sure you're probably part of some weird neighborhood group.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Neighborhood. There's probably some good drama going on in there. Just don't be the drama.
Don't.
You know, that's what I'm trying to explain to people. Like, be the reason people love coming to this group, not the drama, right? There's this one woman in this Facebook group, this Nolensville 411 group. Okay. Her name is Joni. I'm going to talk about Joni for a minute. Joni is a Lyft driver and everyone loves Joni. Okay.
I thought we were going to like, don't be the drama. I thought you were going to give us some good dirt, but okay.
No, I'm not going to give you any drama.
This is better.
Giving you, like, who to be.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Good. Be Joni. Yeah. Okay. Like Joni's a Lyft driver that everyone loves. Joni has picked up people at 3 a.m. to take them to the airport, right? And like, if anybody ever asks, who's a good driver that could take me to the airport? Joni, they'll tag Joni. Everybody tags. She also works at the local ice cream shop.
Really?
She's the manager there and makes ice cream cake. And everybody loves Joni. And she's not the admin of this group.
Sure.
You know? She didn't start the group, but man, and she posted in there. The one time she posted, "Hey, I got a list of all my favorite restaurants. Does anybody want it?" And she like emailed everybody, like manually emailed every person like this PDF of her favorite like restaurants in town. And
the Joni list.
Venmoed her for it. They were like, "Oh, you should charge for this." And so she was like, "Well, here's my Venmo," and like. Yeah, like, and the people give her, you know, it's just great. It's really great. I love Joni. So if Joni ever hears this, shout out to Joni. She's a great Lyft driver and a great person all around.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's so much opportunity to be that person on the internet. Right?
I love that. No, and you're exactly right about, I mean, if you be Joni and in doing so, people know you as a lover of Jesus. You know, like there's a group, there is a drama-filled group here in town, and it's...
We love drama, though. We have one, too. It's Women of Williamson County. Oh, the drama.
Yeah, okay. I got to set that one aside. It's too tempting, but I'll sneak in there maybe and check it out. But this one's like a secret group, so you can post anonymously. So that's the whole idea, is you can ask anything and people will reply publicly. But I see all the time, I just moved to town and I'm looking for a church, or my kid's going to school there and he would love to get connected to a church. And so everybody starts like plugging their church.
Right.
But what you don't see is anybody saying, "Hey, I know Joni and she loves Jesus. Figure out what church she goes to." Mm-hmm. That's a totally different kind of recommendation, you know?
Yeah. Or like just adding the person as a friend and then like saying, "Hey, I want to meet you for coffee."
Yeah.
And then we'll discuss like where I could see you going to church. Like I know of several churches in the area. Maybe like, there's a good one for you. I don't know.
I have done, actually, I did that once and they didn't reply to me, but I thought that was a great idea because I was like, I'm not going to pitch a church, but I know a lot of Christians in town. I know a lot of people that love Jesus.
To me, that just becomes this running like feed of like people like fighting about whose church is the best or has the best youth group or something. And I'm like, no, that's not what I want. And what I really don't want is to see like more necessarily. I mean, I'm fine with this. But like what I don't mean is your church should go and start a bunch of groups about your church.
Yeah. I didn't hear that. I didn't think that's what you were saying.
Yeah, but some people will think that.
Yeah.
I don't want you, because like I think that was a very 80s, 90s model of church. But we're going to start a church softball team. And this is going to get people to come to our church because we have a softball team. And while, yes, I guess that was true then, I think now that's not the case. And if you started like a softball group and said, "Hey, we're forming a softball team or a league in Nolensville," you don't have to necessarily put the church in it. You can just make a softball league, become good friends with people, and then through relationship eventually tell them about Jesus. I don't think it has to be so like hitting people over the head with the gospel. The worst thing, like, is that people.
Well, you're conflating two things though. Like you started by what? I did this the other day too. Is it the peace sign?
It's the new Apple. You can turn it off at the top.
Oh my.
The green button at the top where you can see it recording.
So, and we had to explain to listeners, like, if you're not watching the video, you don't know what just happened. It's the stupid balloon thing again.
You can do all sorts of crazy things these days.
I got to figure out how to shut it off because it trips me up all the time. Look, you got confetti going now. That's sweet. That looks like my elementary school photos with the neon lights.
It's incredible. So yeah, you can do a lot of different things.
So you said start a group and make it all about the church, but then you said, softball team for Jesus. And the problem is your community doesn't look at your church and think Jesus, they think church.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Don't do that. Don't start a softball team for Jesus or the church. Just start a softball team.
Right. But don't hide it. I mean, like I think you said before, like it's a great way to just minister to people, like start relationships and get to know people.
Don't do the bait and switch though.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I
just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
So, well, where do we go from here? What's another mistake that you see people make? There's a lot of like eagerness and misfires, I feel like, in this space.
Yeah, I think there's like a loss of authenticity that's happening across the internet right now because of AI, and I think we're going to see more of that in the coming years. A loss of authenticity, not just in church social media, but also in like TV. Like we'll be like, is this an actor real? Is this actor real?
Yeah.
Or is it not? Or is this voice real or is it not? Right. I think we're going to get to that point where we're like so confused on what's real and what isn't. And so, I think being authentically yourself online is going to become more and more important. I think being vulnerable online will continue to be very important. Here's the thing, like Genesis chapter 3 took away vulnerability, right? Like vulnerability was taken away from us in the garden. We became ashamed of it, right? And I think ever since then, the more we've been vulnerable to people and shown them who we really are, the more holy the ground has become, And so I don't know about you, but if anybody's ever shared something with you deeply that's affected them, you've definitely, you felt that holy ground, I think, in a way.
Sure.
And so I think, how do we create that online? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I think creating spaces where people can be vulnerable can also create spaces where people are sharing their stories and where God is reaching them and teaching them and what is happening in their lives. I think that's going to continue to just evolve and change.
I think that's so good. I think you're right too. I was talking to Stephen Earp, who I know you know, and he was saying, the more high tech something is, the more high touch you need to be. And we've talked before, I think, a little bit about like this idea of hyper local, and heavy personalization and authenticity is really, maybe in a word, what we're talking about. I think people still are just like longing to be known. Online, it kind of, it presents as like, I want to be seen, give me your attention.
Yeah.
But like, I think there's something different about being known, like, actually, getting past the projection of whatever image I want to put out there and, get down to it.
Yeah. But then how do we do that, really well, especially in a digital ministry context?
I think I've seen some people doing it well, and I'd be interested if any examples come to your mind too. But those ministries that are inviting people in to. Sometimes it's it's certainly a smaller conversation. Sometimes it's one-on-one, but not always. With no expectation. It's like, hey, I'm just here to help if I can. I think there's a lot of, if there's a church listening, I think that some of these offers to pray for people, I don't think people hear that a lot. And they might not even believe in the power of prayer or, have a faith of any kind. But I've rarely had people reject prayer, if I offer to pray 100%. For somebody.
Yeah, I remember, I think our mutual friend, Christy Childers, talking about, like prayer is our number one, like primary way to share the gospel.
And she's
because nobody turns it down.
Yeah. And she's incredible. Like, so she worked at Facebook as well. I was out visiting once. We're at the Menlo Park location, and we were up on the roof, where you can go through the garden or whatever.
The woods.
Yeah. And there's like a smoothie stand, and we stopped by there and get a smoothie. And this guy's name is Joseph that was serving the smoothies. And Christy goes, Joseph, do you know? So she's using his name, like very personal, looking him in the eye. And she's like, do you know where your name comes from? Do you know your name's in the Bible? And she starts to tell him about the meaning of the name Joseph and tell him the story about, Joseph and his brothers. And he's like, my mom used to tell me this story. And so the guy starts talking about his mom, and I'm looking around. It's like, we're like having a Bible conversation here in a business setting in front of everybody. And I was the one that was like, man, I'm kind of nervous about this, like.
Are you the one feeling awkward?
Yeah, it was, nervous is the wrong word. It's just awkward, like very unusual. But this guy was so touched and so kind of engaged in this conversation. And Christy, was like, what can I pray for you? Like right now, like what's one thing that I could pray for you?
Yeah.
And we just sat there and had a little prayer gathering at the smoothie stand in Facebook's headquarters. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened a lot more than you probably expected it to happen at Meta for sure. Yeah. I think, there's a lot of people who think there's not a lot of people of faith at these large tech companies, but there really is.
Yeah, there are. So. There's a really solid community of amazing people.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're one of them, Katie, for sure.
Thanks. I'm working on it.
Thanks for spending some time with me chatting about this stuff today. I think you've provided a ton of good insights. I mean, if people want to, we talked about the Facebook group. Do you have to be a church communications person to join it, or can anybody join it?
No, you can join it.
If you're a digital ministry podcast listener, can you join that?
If you're a digital ministry podcast listener, you care enough about this that you can come to the group for sure.
As long as you leave your drama at home. No drama.
Your drama at home. We also don't debate theology, so leave that at the house too. Okay. But if you want to debate marketing campaigns, sure.
All right.
Bring it.
Yes. And did you catch the yes and?
Oh, what? Say that again?
I said yes and for.
Oh, yes, and
yeah.
You can find me at katieallred.com, KDJallred on Instagram. You can tweet me. I don't know if people still do that. You can also.
Does anybody say X me? Are people saying X me yet?
That's weird.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I think.
That sounds like you want to kill me. No, I don't want to be that. So I don't know. Just find me on Instagram. That's fine. Thread me.
Katie, you're the best. I'm definitely. I promise I'll call you next time I'm in town. I'd love to hang out, and we'll go get some ice cream.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
And we'll take Lyft to get there. We'll see if.
Oh my gosh, we'll call Joni.
Yeah,
I'll just text Joni.
Yeah, I love it. Let's do it. All right, Katie, take care.